Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the ARB meeting to order. So just as a few opening remarks, welcome to the City of Dublin Architectural Review Board. You can join the meeting in person at 555 Perimeter Drive and also access the meeting via the live stream on the city's website. We certainly welcome public comment, including public participation if you want to be on site. The meeting procedure for each case this evening will begin with a staff presentation, followed by an opportunity for the applicant to make a presentation. The board will ask clarifying questions of staff first, then the applicant. The board will then hear public comment from the podium. Each speaker must provide their name and address for the record. Following public comment, including those submitted by email, the board will deliberate on cases prior to rendering a decision. So prior to each meeting, we say the pledge. So stand as you're able and face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Judy, we call the roll.
Yes, Ms. Cooper.
Here.
Ms. Damasser.
Here.
Mr. Cotter.
Here.
And Mr. Alexander and Mr. Jewell are excused.
Good. So the first order of business is to accept the documents and approve the minutes of the meeting. So do I have a motion and a second?
I'll move to accept the documents into the record and to approve the minutes from the January 25th and February 22nd, 2023 meetings.
I'll second.
Ms. Damasser.
Yes.
Mr. Cotter.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Good. Thank you. So just for a case procedure, so the Architectural Review Board is responsible for the review of construction and modifications or alterations to any site in the area subject to the architectural review under the provision of the zoning code section 153.170. The board has the decision-making responsibility on these cases, and anyone who intends to address the board on cases this evening must be sworn in. So anybody who wants to anybody intending to address the board, please raise your right hand and answer in the affirmative. Good. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony to this board? Good. Thank you very much. So first, tonight we only have two cases. I'd say one of them is one of them is a little more complex than the other. So I would like to, from the board, if nobody has an objection, we'd like to move case 2 first. Not that any case is easy, and there could be something that comes up, but we think it could be a little easier. So if nobody has an objection, I'd like to have a motion to move case 2, which is that 64 Riverview, and take that as case 1, as an alteration to the agenda.
I'll move that we take the 64 South Riverview Street 22-161 MPR to the first case on the agenda.
I'll second.
Ms. Damasser.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
Mr. Cotter.
Yes. Good. Thank you. So if we'll start with, we'll start with case 2, 64 South Riverview Street, 22-161 MPR, a minor project review. So this application is a request for an exterior modification to an existing building on a 0.23 acre site zoned historic district historic residential. The site is located northeast of the intersection with Everly Hill Lane. Ms. Pfizer, hope I got that right, will be our presenter. So when you're ready.
Thank you and good evening. This is a request for review and approval of a minor project for exterior modifications to an existing residence, including a multi-level deck and a new spiral staircase located at 64 South Riverview. The 0.23 acre site is highlighted in yellow and is located northeast of the intersection of Everly Hill Lane and South Riverview Street, with the Scioto River directly to the east. The property is zoned Historic District Historic Residential. This is an aerial view of the site. The parcel is outlined in yellow and the location of the previously existing deck and the currently existing deck is outlined in blue. There is significant grading changes along the eastern part of the parcel, along with some mature trees. So the home was constructed in 1994 and is not considered contributing to the historic district. The homeowners applied and were approved for a building permit through the Department of Building Standards on September 21st of 2022. The permit was not reviewed by planning and it was not approved by the board either. So here are the existing conditions at the site from South Riverview Street. The one on the left is looking southeast and the one on the right is looking northeast. So please note that the existing deck is not visible from the public right-of-way on South Riverview. So this is an image of the previously existing deck that was built with the home and demolished in the fall of 2022. The deck was 2 levels and was white with horizontal railing. It also had 3 concrete footers. So this is the existing deck that was built in the fall of last year. The applicant is seeking ARB's review and approval of the constructed deck, in addition to the spiral staircase, to ensure the site has a clear record moving forward. The entire deck is constructed of pressure-treated wood planks with a stainless steel cable rail system. The existing deck adds a ground level but retains the same footer locations as the previously existing deck. And the approximately 154 square foot ground level was added for the homeowners to access below-grade storage. The 166 square foot second level of the deck has insect screening. Staff has determined that the screening does not opaquely enclose the deck and thus complies with the historic design guidelines, which advises against fully enclosed decks to avoid creating a permanent interior space. The third level of the deck is the same depth and width as the second level, creating an overhang serving as the cover for the second level. So the applicant meets all the historic residential site development standards, including all setback requirements, and is under the lot coverage maximum of 45% at 38%. Outlined in blue on the elevation and the survey is the project area encompassing the existing deck and the proposed staircase. The applicant is proposing an 11-foot and 3-inch tall spiral staircase that will connect the ground level deck with the second level. And the proposal also will include a 4-by-4-foot concrete landing at the base. Staff has no concerns with the spiral staircase due to the lack of visibility from the public right-of-way and the side elevations. Engineering has reviewed the submitted lot survey and determined that the proposed project was not within the scope of the special flood hazard area outlined in red on the map. And the proposed project will not disrupt the grade or change any grading at the site. So the proposed staircase is a Paragon black steel spiral staircase, and in May of 2013, ARB approved a similar case at 134 South Riverview Street, which was considered and also contributing, also not contributing to the historic district. The board had no conditions of approval other than the applicant must verify the height of the stairs prior to applying for a building permit. So the deck is constructed of pressure-treated wood, and staff has concerns about the wear of raw wood over time and is recommending a condition that the applicant seal the deck with a clear sealant or stain the wood to preserve the finish, as recommended in Chapter 6 of the Historic Design Guidelines. So Feeney brand stainless steel cable railing was used on all 3 levels of the deck. Cable railing was previously disapproved by the ARB in February of 2022 when it was proposed as deck railing for 94 Franklin Street, which is considered a contributing property to the historic district. The proposal included black metal cable rail and a black metal trim, and the board had concerns about the railing being too modern in design for the residents. So all minor project review criteria are shown, and all criteria are either met with condition, or not applicable. So planning recommends approval of the minor project with 2 conditions: that the applicant stain or seal all wood surfaces, and that the applicant apply for the appropriate building permitting for the spiral staircase upon approval from the ARB. And with that, the applicant is in attendance this evening, and I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Very clear. Any clarifying questions? maybe just one more kind of background, because just so we can get it on the clear that the deck exists today. And it was, when you say, as we go forward with this, they'll have to go with a building permit. I wasn't sure what you said.
Yes. So the building permit for the deck was approved and the
Right.
deck is built.
Right.
The spiral staircase was not approved in the building permit.
Okay.
So they will need to have to apply for another permit.
Okay. So
for
it's
the
just
staircase.
updating the permit to
Mhm.
ensure that we have the full
Yes.
building in there. Okay. I'm clear. The applicant have any comments or any questions, anything for the? Does anybody have a question for the applicant? Okay, good. Okay. For me, for us, just up here. So maybe just because certainly, I mean, at one point we did this one. Okay, it's non-contributing. I think that's there, and I think moving forward. Yeah, but for me, as we think forward, just from a clarity standpoint, that we've disapproved these kind of railings before, this cable kind of railing. And just as a clarity in the future, even though they're non-contributing, I mean, I think decks at the back now will face the river, and now we have more traffic on the river with the kayaks and all the stuff that will happen. And maybe from the board, just a conversation that future, okay, this one is in a different place, just to how it was. How do we feel about those railings in the future? We've disapproved them on contributing. Do we think that in the future, to give some clarity to staff, would we want them in the future on non-contributing in the historic district?
We also, I believe she said there was also another one in a non-contributing property in the historic district that had been approved. I forget the address, but it was in close proximity to this one.
It's on Franklin Street, so it's on the other side. Yeah. Okay. No,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah.
The
So,
railing or the stairway? The stairway.
The stairway, because the railing was disapproved.
Yes, railing
Railing
was
was
disapproved.
disapproved. The stairways were approved.
okay,
But the railing was disapproved on a contributing.
Yes, at 94 Franklin Street.
So for me, it's just a matter for us to make some clarity, to make sure we have staff in the future, that we don't come into the same thing we're trying to, from
Right.
a board standpoint, do we think this is traditional enough in the district, even on a non-contributing structure? So it's more for us to make sure on our side, we can give some clarity, because certainly in the section 6, I think certainly it talks about traditional material. Metal is okay, but do we think cables are not traditional? And it's more of an open I just want to make sure the next time it comes up, staff has something that from the board that they can give that future applicant some guidance. So it's more of an open question to us.
okay. Again, for clarification, I understood that it was not approved on a prior property that was considered a contributing property. But have we reviewed or approved cable on non-contributing properties before?
I was not able to locate any precedent.
Thank you.
So this will be that precedent.
Yeah,
Well, or it may not be a precedent, but it's
Yeah, I just want to
except
make
the
sure.
first time we've looked
Pre-existing.
at it.
We're going to approve it. Okay, well, that for me, it's in a
Yeah.
special case, but I mean,
Right.
in the future, I mean, if I look at our guideline in this, it feels a little too modern. If I were to look at it in a different case in the district, my own personal
Like
view-
on a new build that we're looking at, for
Yeah, 'cause
instance,
it doesn't-
right?
it won't- okay, this one is a different spot, but it doesn't fit if it sits beside another one. So just want.
It doesn't bother me because it is on the backside of a non-contributing property. So those two factors are important to me, that it's not you can't see it from the street, it's outside the sight lines, and it's on a non-contributing building to begin with. As far as your concern of kayaking, during the kayaking season, it should be fully leafed up. Yeah, you're right. So I've kayaked that river, I know. Or canoed it. You see, and the cabling is such a small detail as well that I'm not sure that it's.
I think I look at it also in part that it's a previously existing condition. We're not actually approving the cabling now because it already exists.
Correct.
No, you have to think of this though as an application, not as a pre-existing. They never got approval. So we can
I see.
Yeah.
we can order it removed. Well,
Removed.
we wouldn't order it, but we would, by disapproving, they would be required to remove it. Am I correct? Yeah.
Okay, that was a good clarification because what we are, and I believe you covered this in your presentation, that we are by approving now, clarifying or correcting the prior absence of approval on the decking below or before.
Correct. Right.
So for me, the clarification is in the future, would we? Okay,
Assuming it came before us properly,
Yeah,
as
if it
in
came through it properly,
before it was built.
would we give staff the recommendation that, okay, bring that and we would approve it? Or we think it should be it's less traditional and we would tell staff that to guard against that, they could bring it to us and then we'd have to decide here. But,
Yes, I think that's correct. We would guard against that.
and I'd say on my side, I'm a bit the same. I think for me, it doesn't exactly fit there. I mean, new builds like that, but I think from a traditional standpoint, if you have two of them next to each other. Now, mind you, two of us are not here, so we're maybe not giving you full guidance, but just that we're here. I mean, I think I hear you that you feel okay if it's in
Yeah,
a
I'd be
certain
okay with it.
location.
It makes me nervous to approve it now if we're going to disapprove it in the future. So again, think of this as an application as if it had not been built yet.
Yeah.
And what you would do. Because this
That
will,
makes me nervous.
Mhm.
Because I think of it as a pre-existing construction. We've not reviewing again when it was constructed. What was the date of construction for the decks?
I'm not sure the exact date of construction, but the building permit was approved in September of last year.
Okay, okay.
because the next applicant's going to come in and say at
absolutely.
64 South Riverview, you approved this.
I would only chime into that certainly the applicant could say that, but in a board like this, or in a BZA board, the factors matter. And it's out of the sight line, it's behind, it's going to be shielded by leaves. All of that matters. So they could bring that up to you and perhaps it would be compelling, but maybe it wouldn't be. So you don't feel like you have to have your hands tied if you approve this for future ones.
And I appreciate that because there was decking on this property before the new deck was put onto this property.
Right.
So that was a replacement. So I feel more comfortable that even though technically we are including that in our approval here tonight, if we so approve the minor project, I feel like it was also already a existing condition. They weren't coming in and saying, we want to build all these decks on, et cetera. So that's where my comfort level and my distinction is between new build projects that we have or may have in the future. And as pointed out, it'll be under those criteria, a lot of criteria.
So Sarah, I think if it comes up, it'll come to us and we'll sort through it the next time. I don't think there's a clear way forward on whether, I think as the law director said, the circumstances will matter and we'll move forward from that standpoint. So.
Yeah, thank
Good.
you.
Any public comment that came through?
There was not.
No public comment. Okay. So just maybe the applicant, because we'll have a couple of conditions to approval, maybe just if you could come up just make sure that the two that are here that you don't have any questions or you're okay with. And if you could just turn it on and state your name and your address.
Norman Sennhauser. I'm the owner of 64 South Riverview Street.
Good, thanks. So, so on this one, you see the two conditions. So the ceiling or staining, whichever you'll apply for a new building permit.
Yes.
To manage.
Matter of fact, Jerry, I think we did the first time. Did we not? Yeah, we actually applied for that, and that's kind of what triggered this. So we've already done the application, and we need to wait a year, and then we're staining it.
Okay.
Sealing.
Good. Any other questions?
Am I allowed to make just comments about the conversation you're having?
Sure, well, yeah.
Just as a
Absolutely.
As you're talking about what do you do, precedents, things along those lines, and I think I sent pictures, and this is unrelated to ours, which I appreciate what you're doing. I think you're going to have a tough place to go because what we talked about and where we got our idea from was the suspension bridge has cable railing on it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Outside
that's
the
literally
historic
what we did is we were like, great, we can see the bridge, let's parallel that. But and the rails that were there before were actually metal. They're just now they're smaller metal.
Yep.
So just as a total, I just can't keep my mouth shut. Ask my
Yeah.
wife.
That's
So-
okay.
so
I appreciate
about
that.
it.
From
No,
And
that's
you're-
actually very helpful.
Right.
And
So, and the challenge too is like 2 doors down from us, there's a cable railing too,
Yep.
facing the river and behind
Yep.
things like that. But I think as you get in that conversation, I think what you're saying is there are going to be exceptions where it's not visible and things along those lines.
right.
But someone like me would go up and say, well, you just made a big extension bridge with the,
Fair point.
that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, and it's also helpful to know that the prior iteration of this deck had metal rails.
Yeah, it was,
of
they
s-
looked wood, but they were painted. So they were, and this is all maintenance. It was actually falling off the back of the house.
No, that I understand, right. But
Yeah.
I agree that the fact that it existed before makes it
Right.
easier to approve now, and it's the
They're
same
just smaller
footprint.
metal,
Right.
it was metal rails in there.
Good. Thank
Okay,
you.
sure.
Good. So if there's no other comments or questions, if we can.
No, I will move to approve the minor project with the conditions as stated.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Cotter,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
and Ms. Zerk.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So now we'll move on to case one, new case two. So 3640 North High Street. This is Stonewall. So this is 2023-015. This is an informal review. So this application request for repair and replacement of stones within a historic retaining wall on shared lots totaling 0.46 acres. The site is zoned Historic District, Historic Core, and is located northeast of the intersection of Wing Hill Lane with North High Street. Ms. Holt, you'll be our presenter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board members. Indeed, this is the wall that spans between 36 and 40 North High Street. The site is outlined in yellow here on the slide, and the zoning is Historic Core, with Historic Core adjacent to the west and Historic Residential directly to the east. Zooming in a little bit closer on the location, this particular slide shows some of the property lines, and the wall itself is shown in blue. So 3638 North High is to the south, right along Wing Hill Lane there. The star is the 2-story privy on this property. 40 North High is in the middle with the parking lot behind. You can see the wheel stops placed there. And then 25 North Street, which is Cohatch, is at the top or the north side of the wall. And this portion of the wall appears to be in pretty good condition. The area of biggest concern for our discussion tonight is the southeast corner shared by 3638 and 40. The south-facing edge is on the 3638 property. The east-facing edge is mostly on the 40 property. There is a related minor project review that is honestly stalled, which is why we are now coming before you with an informal to get a little bit more information about this project and the approach. That minor project proposes to address the 20-foot section facing south and then just 6 feet of the section facing east. So taking a look at the wall itself, this is a couple photos of the wall, and the entire structure is approximately 102 feet long by 7 feet tall. It spans the 3 properties as we saw previously, and it's U-shaped on its side, also as we saw with the open side facing west. It was constructed around 1934 by Ticky Wing, for which Wing Hill Lane is named. Part of the wall system has that 2-story privy behind 3638, and it's characterized by dry-laid stones with a larger cap block or row of blocks on the top, as you can see in the left-hand photo. The corresponding area of concern from the aerial is shown right here. And then you can note the slumping of the stones in this location. There's the missing capstones and some discoloration from water and moisture. A little bit of case history to kind of show you where we've been on this project. In December of last year, a final development plan for 3638 North High was approved with a condition of approval that said no demolition of the existing buildings would occur until some kind of plan for wall conservation and/or repair was approved. And this is because of the proximity of those new utilities to this wall. We didn't want to undermine that wall and then have the whole thing go. In November of last year, the minor project review that I previously referred to was submitted for the wall repairs. And again, we've kind of come to an impasse with differing opinions about how to proceed, and we're going to go over some options tonight. We have questions about exact restoration versus reconstruction, and then the extent of the repairs. In May of 2021, our consultant Preservation Designs Limited was requested by the city to analyze the wall, and they hired Corda for a structural assessment. You have a copy of that report in your packet. At that time, they noted a number of problems. First was that this was originally a free draining wall system, meaning dry laid, so the water could naturally percolate through it. Since its construction, a number of joints and spaces have been filled in with mortar, and that has trapped the water behind the wall, leading to some structural compromises. Also noted were the parking surcharges at 40 North High, the drainage added to the back of the wall, and then invasive tree growth. And then to the earliest discussion that we've had on this property in 2020, this was early in 2020, the owner of 40 North High, Dr. LaPierre, who's here with us tonight, submitted an informal review to include demolition of a part of the wall. And the board at that time indicated support to preserve the wall in its location. So as we've seen, this has been a topic of discussion for a number of years, and just taking a look at the areas of concern from different angles. On the left, we see the drainage from the 40 North High parking area directed towards the back of the wall, and this is looking at that southeast corner a little bit more closely. And then on the right side, we see a view from the top of the parking lot. And then this is another view of the parking lot with that area of parking surcharge from the top behind 40 North High. The back of the privy is on the right side of the photo. You can see the mixed stone wall face there. And then note the proximity of the wheel stop to the edge of the wall there. And then the drain pipe is also shown in the box. We've also noted that, and as Corda noted, ailanthus trees, which are very invasive and aggressive, are growing both on top of and at the bottom of the wall and could be contributing to its condition. And then finally, the sewer pipe that is going through the wall on the right-hand photo. The area around that is mortared, again, potentially allowing that water pressure to build up. And it may be contributing to the corner displacement shown just to the left of the pipe in the blue box. So in consulting with PDL, they indicate 3 possible options. And again, these are described in detail in the staff report and in the accompanying memo that they put together for you. Just to summarize, the first option is no action, which could essentially end up as demolition by neglect. Their opinion is that the wall is in danger of falling, and they recommend actually cordoning off both the top and the bottom of the wall for safety reasons. The second option is to replace the wall with a modern structure. This would destroy the historic object as an original object within the district. We would lose its attributes, but it could potentially allow for a more convenient location of the wall on the property. Somehow within that, we would want to preserve the privy on 3638 that we've all worked so hard to keep. And then the final option is to repair and preserve the wall, which is obviously the best option from a true preservation point of view, and that best meets the guidelines direction for these structures. This would require that the wall would remain in its current location, and it would also require the use of an experienced structural engineer and set of stonemasons that really know about dry laid stone walls and can recommend the very best approach. We also have a fourth and a new option to present to you tonight, which I think is kind of exciting. The facade grants have been recently reinstated in the city. The information is in your packet, and it's soon to be on the city's website. Historic wall preservation could qualify, I'm not saying will, but could qualify for a grant, and this would be up to $25,000 per property, up to 50% of the total project cost. So that could be quite significant. $100,000 is available per year, and that takes a separate application process. It also means that whatever is approved needs to come back before this board for your approval. The discussion questions are as presented in your report, and just to go through them very quickly, does the board support a holistic approach of repairing the entire wall system, or how does the board feel about individual area repairs? The second question is, what does the board have for a recommendation regarding the proposed design and structural approaches? And these would be the three options: no action, a structural reconstruction using modern techniques, or a structural reconstruction using historic materials and techniques. The third question is, what additional information would you feel that is necessary in order to be able to make a good informed decision? And the fourth question is, if you support historic reconstruction, would the board support the use of historic mortar, perhaps within the wall that's not visible, just to add some additional strength? And then certainly other considerations. And with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
I have one question.
Sorry, this isn't quite working right.
The first question, the holistic approach of repairing the entire wall system, you mean the entire 200 feet, right? It was 200 feet,
It
whatever,
was about 100 feet.
including the northern section that you said was not so bad.
Right. What was originally proposed in the minor project was an area of 20 feet side to side and then 8 feet up and down. And it's potential that we need more repairs than that. We need to go farther beyond that sewer pipe, for example. And we don't know, but some of the reports have indicated that the whole thing needs to be looked at as a comprehensive project rather than piecemealing it.
How many owners are we talking about?
We are talking about 2 affected owners right now. The property to the north at Cohatch seems to be in pretty good condition. So it comes down to 3638, which is owned by 1 owner, and then 40.
Thank you.
Would you agree, though, that if it is a holistic approach to the entire wall, that Cohatch needs to be involved as well? Because that is about, I don't know, about 10 feet wraparound.
And that is part of the question.
And maybe just one longer term project. So if we come to this wall, if you come to a point and say, okay, we have to take it down, is it fall under the demo? I forget, 173J, whatever it is. So the proper, is this a property? Because it talks about property and structure. So I'm just trying to understand, is this a 117, so does it fall under the demo? You'd have to understand the demo criterion if you wanted to take it down. So whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And based on my recollection of those criteria, they do not really speak to objects and site.
It says structure.
Yes.
Don't know, maybe that's just maybe on the legal side, maybe to look, because I just don't know if you come to a place like that, what would be the criterion, and will that criterion apply if we get if that would come up? Just trying to keep it in my mind.
If structure is not defined in that code, I can tell you the building code doesn't include a wall as a structure.
Yeah, I mean, we do, is definitely, it's not in this part. So I would probably, from a standpoint that wall probably is not a structure. I mean, I'll have to have a definition, but that could be likely. Okay, yeah. Anybody else? Just general comments for Sarah? No? Good. So the applicant, I guess it's not really an applicant on this one, presenter.
We have a representative from Osborne Engineering.
Yep. So if they want to step forward and just discuss a bit your view. Yeah, exactly. If you could.
Brian Lundgren with Osborne Engineering, reside in Dublin. Do you want my Dublin address or
your work? I mean, it could be either.
Dublin 5141 Dairy Lane.
Okay. I'm sorry, what was your last name?
Lundgren, Lundgren. So unfortunately, Wes Davis is not here, so I'm shooting from the hip a little bit. We also have Alpesh Jabda, our structural engineer. He's here as well if we need to talk about the structural details. We have Jim Cox, who would be performing the construction of the wall. Yeah, so Jim's expertise is in this very similar wall type construction. I really don't have any additional comments. I wish the owner was here for that we're representing. So we're working on the project for the multifamily portion that's affected with this wall. I understand the doctor's property is right next door, and you're affected with this project as well. I do not have really any recommendations that we would prefer at this point, unless I defer to you, Jim or Alpesh. You do?
Yeah, I think here we want to try to get a few of them out here because there's without some details around this of trying to understand how we help you move to the next. We need enough information to try to help sort through what the next thing would be. Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Cox. I'm the owner of Vic Art Masonry, 1577 East Fifth Avenue. I thought, just to add some clarity, my view of the scope of this project was the 20 feet to, let's see, what side's the privy on?
South side.
Privy's on, so 20 feet linear wall feet on the privy side, on the south side, and then about 7 or 8 feet of return on the
Going north.
on the east side.
Yep.
Back to probably beyond the sewer pipe. So yeah, let's just say 30 linear feet of wall, just the corner there, because really the rest of the wall is in great shape. The rest of the wall is, yes, so the long section of the wall is built with higher quality stones that are dressed, squared, they're big suckers, and then the part that is failing is the uglier stuff, not as well built, just not as good as materials. Of course, it's a shorter span, so it didn't have to be as good a quality.
Sarah, can we put the picture up of the east and south facing views? Yeah.
So that's what I've been concentrating on. Now, I personally have other concerns, but I don't want to get my client in trouble or misspeak, or the engineers. I don't know. I'm just a bricklayer here.
So maybe just as so you're saying from a historic, you're proposing that you're going to repair the wall using the existing, you're going to take what is there and repair it to a structural soundness that, okay,
yes, but the method and the approach is yet to be defined. It felt like people were strongly, they were insisting that it be rebuilt exactly the way it was with the original historic methods. I'm not so thrilled about that idea. I mean,
Why not?
you got engineers
Yep.
here. So 1939 to now, 90 years, not that great. And I'm concerned about people that you're next door, right? You're at 40, you're next door. I'm surprised people don't drive off that thing. I mean, have they, to your knowledge? Is that do you just park there to make sure that your tenants don't drive off the? Yeah.
Mr. Cox, you need to step a little closer. Otherwise you're not,
Okay.
you're not, yeah.
The audience member who's speaking needs to.
Oh, yeah, this one. Okay, sorry. So if we hold, I don't know if we're gonna hold this, but before we get on that side, because for me, I think I want to really try to understand from a bricklayer standpoint or an engineer standpoint, you're saying you can repair it, but I'm also hearing you say that you shouldn't. So I'm just trying to understand.
We can repair it and we can go all dry lay, but it's not ideal.
Because, and this is an open conversation, just not challenge, just trying to
Well,
understand.
if I had my druthers, I would have made it battered or stepped, a sheer, vertical wall like that. It's, I mean, it's got to be put together pretty well. He could probably explain the science and the physics of that better than I could, but just me looking at it, I don't like it. I'd almost like to see a concrete wall with stone face. Be very easy to do, and yeah. And I think somebody should think about putting bollards up there, but
Do you do dry laid work?
yeah,
Okay.
it's not my favorite thing to do, but
No, I just wanted to know if you'd done it before.
I
Yeah.
always admired Ballantrae.
I'm sorry?
Ballantrae, those walls of Ballantrae. I
Yes.
admired that, but yeah, there's not you just pick them up and just stack them one on top of
That's
the
what it always looked like to me. Yes.
That's actually, I've been making jokes all day about how I'm going to explain to the smart people how to put one stone on top of the other. I'm just going to relent on that joke for now.
Well, I have a question though. Let's just look at the east facing area here on the right picture, this picture to the right, looking to the east of the privy stand. And let's say that the decision was made to proceed to just repair this wall in the way it was initially constructed. Explain to our board how that would be done. How would you do that? Would you take it all down and then relay it up?
On that side, I would. On this side we're looking at, on the side of the privy, we would take it all down. And I can assume that the wall is maybe 4 feet deep, 5 feet. It's just a guess. We don't know actually what's
I
back
don't
there.
think it was that deep.
I do know that there's an exposed soil pipe there, and I can't help but think somebody might want to deal with that someday, but
Exposed what?
there's a sewer pipe that's
Sewer,
sticking
the
out
sewer pipe. I thought you said
corner of the wall.
soil.
So we'd at least go back that far. And basically you build a really, really thick wall. It's, you know, this thick and backfilled with gravel so that we get the drainage going.
So
But how, you know, yeah, like how that's, that wall's gonna be able to handle traffic. Somebody backs up into his lot, backs a garbage truck up there, something like that. I don't know how, you know, that's wall was probably never designed for 50,000-pound garbage trucks. So I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want somebody coming back to me saying, "Hey, Jim, you know, you said you knew what you were doing." But
from an engineering standpoint, I get, it sounds to me like it certainly can be done, but from an engineering standpoint,
we might need
can it
some
be done?
modern methods.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would definitely lean on the engineers, on the structural
Absolutely.
engineers.
Yep.
And we might use some, if not a concrete wall, you know, reinforced concrete wall. We could use
Clay in
the,
front of it.
you know, that fabric we use on bridges now in the compacting method. He knows the name.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, okay, so it looks like, but for me structurally, can you put the wall back up? And I don't know on 40 what they're going to use the parking lot for. So I think that's as we do a holistic view. I mean, I mean,
The thing can be put back up. I can't help but think we should use some modern techniques.
that's what I'm asking.
That
What would
then absolutely.
Yeah.
It can absolutely be. So then we, you know, we've got, there's a lot of different little things to consider, but
If I can ask, in the event that we said, well, we're going to go for just the best engineered method, maybe we determine that in this particular case, this restoration of this stone wall, which I'm not saying that's where we'll go, because that would be contrary to preservation, which is our number one goal. But what would if you weren't dealing with trying to restore the stones, then what would your method be? Would it be rebar and concrete walls, or what would you do to keep that cliff of dirt from coming down onto 38 from 40?
yeah. There's many different ways to do it. And honestly, got a structural engineer over here, so I don't think he should be
Okay, we'll direct that to,
him on the spot.
Alpesh, you got.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing we're trying to get to, because obviously it's possible to fix it, make it flush again and make it look like it did. But for me, we got to figure, because right now I think we're seeing from people who see that it's becoming unsafe or is becoming unsafe. So what would we, if we went to preservation, what would that look like? What, you know, for me, and at the end of the day, we're not trying to save everything at any cost. So where are we kind of structurally, what could that look like? What would it cost? If you wrap it around, then from a legal, I mean, then it ends up on 40's property also, and just kind of that. So just trying to understand, I see cosmetically, so to speak, it looks possible, but what would be done to make that work?
In terms of like structural,
has to say his name.
Oh, yeah. So if you introduce yourself and your address.
And get into the microphone.
Yeah.
name,
In
Alpesh Chavdar,
your address.
is 130 East Chestnut Drive Street.
Which city? Dublin?
Columbus.
Columbus, okay.
Can you speak into the mic? If you lean down or pull the mic up a little bit, we'll be able to hear you better.
So I guess to just add on to what Jim was talking on the structural wall, we are not changing the way the original loading on the wall was. The only thing what we are trying to do is the wall deteriorated due to water seepage. The water was all flowing there, and that's what has caused the wall to fall apart. It's not the loading there's no loading change in the wall at all. And what we're going to put back is going to still be the same height of the wall, the same backfill. We're going to, in fact, when we backfill, we'll put gravel, which will put lesser load on the pressure on the wall. We'll put drains behind that, so any water that's coming is going to seep through and not put any. So right now what's happening is a lot of water is running off and causing it to just, make its way between the, dry rocks over there and trying to push it away. And that's what's basically causing the wall to bulge out over time. And I think it could be rebuilt and stacked back. A little bit of mortar joint would help strengthen it. That's not visible on the outside, depending on what it looks to maintain the look. But I still certainly think that restoring the wall is possible, and we would try to restrain any traffic to come nearby using any sort of bollards or what do you call those, parking blocks, so that you don't have any traffic coming all the way to the edge of the wall. And in that way, I think we would maintain the same loading condition that is currently saying, and not change that.
So parking blocks on the top as well as parking blocks below?
Yes. Yeah.
And there are those giant blocks of stone there on site. I don't know if there's enough, but some of them, there's blocks out there that are a ton.
One of the reports that we read thought that those blocks actually are the missing blocks at the top of the wall in the right-hand picture, so that they would go back on top of the wall.
I was never quite clear where there's a couple loose ones up there, and I'm not exactly sure where exactly they are. There's blocks back there in the weeds.
Yep.
So.
Okay, so at least the south wall, I mean, it looks clear that, okay, you putting the wall back, okay, and doing some engineering behind it. So pea gravel, appropriate drainage, making sure that we don't trap water and frozen water behind that wall will enable the wall to be kind of put back and be straight again, but as it is today.
And
Okay.
Excavating out
Yep.
the scruff trees.
Yep. So now the question is, okay, now if we bend the corner a little bit and you have kind of, if we look, okay, let's take it in a chunk. So around the corner going north. So on 40's property, you have the sewer pipe that pops out there. So what thoughts as you work the other direction, you see it as the same?
Well, I'll answer that. Really, our project was that southern piece that is heading off the property. So
Okay.
that's technically the doctor's.
Okay, so you're really
Property.
going, I don't know exactly where it is, but about on this one, where the crack is.
Yeah, yes.
More or less. Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Okay. So at
Yeah,
least on,
because the sewer line's on the other property. on
yeah,
40.
it's another foot down or 2 feet down. Yeah. Okay. Okay. At least on step one, I think, clear on, at least on the engineering side. Okay.
I'm starting to
Thank you. Might have more questions coming.
Okay.
So Sarah, maybe we'll try to go through the questions a little bit on this one. So, if we'll go through the questions, I'll try to keep some notes so we can keep track of this. So on the question one, so how do we feel about I'll say from 3638, their mandates kind of fix their wall. But here we're trying to ask, the wall has problem. Even if you fix that, it looks to me like there might be a safety issue as we move north. So how do we feel about holistic views of the wall? Or doing one thing or doing a holistic thing?
Well, I think always a holistic approach is a good idea where the property owners are making a common effort. I can't speak for the property owners though. And the requirement for the approved plan, excuse me, is to address the south-facing wall. So, and it has been noted that the rest of the wall, most of the wall system is in good shape on the east-facing side. Not to mention the fact that the north corner, nothing was done during that construction. It was just left. So a holistic approach is always a good idea, but in order for the property owner to proceed, his mandate is to address the wall and the repairs of the wall on this property that he is redeveloping. They. So I don't know. I mean, certainly we would want to help both property owners address their problems with the wall and any future use of the property. But at this point, I think our only issue is how to address for the most part, the piece that's on the 3638 property.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know that we can't force the other owners to come in.
Yeah, it'd be great if they all got
But if
together
they
and
all
came
got
in
together
said,
and
"Here's
maybe
what we
took
wanna
advantage
do."
of that grant, that would be.
And also that question, the grant is a great tool to help facilitate the payment of these expenses, and they might, each property owner, or at least the two, 3638 and 40, may each be eligible for a grant to address those problems on each of their properties. And how do they want to do that? But if the work on the 40 property is relatively minor, because the wall, other than the fact that the drainage all seems to be coming from 40, whether it's the surface water drainage or the sewer drainage line, those are the two sources of some of the demise, it appears, over the years. So it certainly seems like each of those properties could get some assistance through the facade program, assuming they would meet the criteria, et cetera.
I mean, I think generally because my concern is if you start to take the south part of the wall coming down, I think we know the major issues in the corner. Really, that corner is in bad shape. If you start to do something, I don't know from what's behind there, but if the whole thing falls down, let's say 6 or 7 feet of that fall down, and I think okay, I'm a mechanical engineer, not a civil engineer, but if it falls down, now I think we end up in we end up in another issue where we have a wall that falls down in a project on the other side. So I think holistic is certainly better. I mean, the property owner for 40 is here. I don't know how we move ahead there because I feel like if we have a problem, we're going to have it might be between the two owners, but we're pushing them to do a certain thing. So I don't know how we do that. Yep. So I think a holistic approach, I don't know how we approach that from the city standpoint from 36, 38 and 40 and try to find, because it's a concern to me that we start to do something and we're going to get it a stop because if the wall went, okay, they're going to have to do something at the corner and the corner is right on the line, right? I mean, it sits right there.
I think we leave it with the fact that, yes, we support a holistic approach and maybe ask staff to help the parties involved muddle through this.
That's what we have gently been trying to do, and I'm so glad that Dr. LaPierre is here tonight just to hear the discussion. We're hopeful that the two property owners will work together, but we can't force that.
No.
Yes. So I think certainly from a holistic standpoint, I think I think otherwise it feels like we're going to end up in a secondary, it won't come to the board, but we're going to end up in a secondary challenge. So Sarah, I don't know how there's other ways potentially to approach the city council. I mean, there's other means that could be out there that I think there's some preservation things that can be done. And maybe we try to reach out to the city council and see if there's some other avenue that could avail to both property owners and somehow come to I don't know, more common way that the city council can kind of knit the thing together in a certain sense. Sarah, I know we've had some discussions, but if we can try to at least push that forward, that'll maybe help find something that can glue the two things together.
Well, and I have a question there, but one of the additional information pieces would be to, what are the costs involved with repairing the wall, repairing it using the existing brick in the manner of which it was designed and built initially, repairing it, adding to it additional drainage and other reinforcements perhaps behind it to make it more stable, but still maintaining the integrity of the initial design. And then the reconstruction of the wall using the footers with the bricks in front, which is not a quote unquote historic design, but as noted in the questions, allows for some stability and perhaps guaranteeing some weight load that wall can bear, or some endurance for that wall to bear. The property development on the 3638 property goes fairly close to the existing wall as proposed and approved by this board. So I know they're going to be concerned about that and protecting the, property and the new construction going in there. I know we have previously had some discussions before this board about future development of the 40 property. We don't have anything pending before us now, but addressing that corner would be part of the, a whole project look for that property as well. So, and then I had this very odd question of, does the city have any interest in the stones being utilized somewhere else? Like the long piece of the wall is in really good shape, and maybe nothing will need to be done other than the cleaning out the scrubs and the trees and so forth. But if you have a lot of missing stone on the 20 feet from the privy over, is that something that, are we able to cobble together the stones we need to make that build back to look how it should look? Because they're very discolored in different ways from the runoff. Is there a use for them somewhere that the city could incorporate so we don't lose them? Because we are going to need to, from a structural perspective, change it there. So that was just one of my other questions I had is there some other place that they are needed or used, the historic stone? Because we certainly don't know what the cost will be. And relying on our bricklayer, we can assume it'll look fairly similar with the discoloration on the existing stones. And I don't know, maybe you lay them back in so those are kind of mixed in with the new stones so that it's more variegated instead of, blotch of old stones and then new like that you have to use to replace those that have crumbled. So that's a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers.
Yeah. If you're going to say it, we have to hear you up here. So, okay. So
But I do think additional information is the cost.
Absolutely. So certainly I think holistic is better, but how do we do that? I think Sarah's going to be it's a conversation between the property owners at some point, but trying to make sure at least the first 6 feet that we get that right, I think is important in how we do that. And I think we're going to have a deeper conversation with other avenues, right? How do we do that? So number 2, recommendations that the board had regarding the proposed design and structural approach. So we have kind of the 3 that PDL gave us. Does anybody support no action? Just as a
No.
Not at all.
Okay, I don't think anybody's there. B is more of a engineered solution that would, I would say on this one, would change the character of the wall, right?
Yeah, I think even C is going to change the character somewhat because you are going to have additional stones to fill in where that has breached and is falling down. But I think B is more or less, do we build a modern concrete wall and then face it with the old stone?
Essentially.
Answer, essentially. And then C is, do we use the old stone and the historic method? And then, and I'm in favor, I mean, I think that's obviously the ideal if it's not cost prohibitive. The other point is that, is it structurally safe to do that? Is that going to last, 50 or 100 years more?
Right, that's the next thought is how, because the suggestion was made that it's not,
Because there
that
is concern.
the dry laid construction would not last.
And can I just jump in? I think what I'm hearing about the cost, I understand what you're saying. Of course, this board isn't supposed to consider the cost, but I am assuming that this is in a sort of, if the property owners were to talk and perhaps take a holistic approach, then they need to perhaps know what the cost would be. Whereas your preference is not to, your role is not to consider the cost, but as to what is the best way to capture the historic feel. So if that makes sense.
Yes, that does make sense. And yeah, we're not supposed to be considering cost.
No, correct.
So what these questions means is, what do we want? And yeah, I think personally, I think that the C is would be the most compliant with our historic code. Not moving the wall is not, moving the wall is not consistent with the code. Using techniques that are not historic, that Mr. Wing didn't use 100 years ago. And as I was doing the calculations, I realized this wall is almost 100 years old. As I get older, so that it's not desirable to me either. Until someone comes to me saying we can't do it because the stones are deteriorating and the whole thing's going to go, that would really be the only thing that could make it feasible. So I think, yes, I personally, as one of the board members, think that C is the most desirable. That is the recommendation that I would make.
Yeah.
Regardless of the elements involved.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, we want, and now that I hear from from an engineer that says, okay, it looks like from a structural standpoint, you can rebuild it in a way that okay, I'm listening here, looks like it is structurally possible. And that would, let's say, eliminate the safety risk, allow the 3638 project to move forward. So certainly from my perspective, I mean, as we said, the last time we had the meeting, is trying to maintain the wall as is, but getting it back to its quote unquote original structure in a safe way, right? I mean, for me,
clearly Mr. Wing had it last for 100 years.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Using those techniques and those materials worked 100 years ago.
I mean, the pyramids are still there and the Colosseum. So I
Well,
mean,
those aren't dry laid.
They took the rebar out of the Coliseum, though. Did you know that?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, that would be my preference, trying to go back to what it was, its original look, with what we can do to ensure that, as everybody says, we want it to last another 100 years. We want it to stay there to make sure that it sits like that. So I think I think I hear everybody that C is the most, is what we'd like to see. It's in the guideline. We want to preserve these walls. That's kind of the first sentence of the code. So we want to do that. So for me, as we go forward, if there's a reason not to do that, there's some safety issue. I mean, that would, when you come to the project for the next step as we go through that, then that would have to be made obvious. Otherwise, today, from what I've heard today, it looks like, at least on the south wall, it's possible. And I think from the board, I think we're well.
And I agree. And in terms of the cost, I'm not saying about like, it's going to cost X dollars to do it this way and Y dollars to do this, and this is how we're going to determine it. That is not a criteria. But what about, again, looking at that corner? Is that corner entirely on 3638? Are they going to be able to do that without encroaching on 240?
Okay, and that comes back to the whole, and I think this is where we come to, because my gut feeling, I'm not again instructed, I don't think you can pull one of those dry laid stones that they're going to want to pull out belongs to 40, right? I mean,
Right.
somewhere along the line, there's a line that they'll say 36, 38, they're going to come to a spot, right? That is going to be super difficult to unwind, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
somebody said that the wall itself is 4 feet at least. So
Deep.
yeah, so you're going to have to. And that would go under question number 3. What additional information would the board need to make a determination? And I think the big thing is what owners are going to be involved in this and how willing are all owners to participate? That to me is.
That's for me. I mean, I think from a structural standpoint, you need to make sure it's safe and all the things that are there. But here, I think this is the crux of the issue. How do we, if we want to do one in a certain sense to make it so it looks correct, how do we make sure from an ownership standpoint as you say, from 36, 38, 40, and 25, if that's what it comes to, how do we get everybody to find a way that where the intersection is, there's a common way forward? I have to
As
say,
well as the other additional info. I'm moving on to
Yep.
3 now.
Yeah,
If that's
no,
all right.
I think we're clear on
We
on
covered 2.
Two,
So
I think
yeah,
I'm clear, yep.
we need to know if the materials are still able to be used. Are those stones, if you touch them, going to turn to dust? In which case, why are we talking tonight? Those sorts of information. Is now the dirt so that it's turned somehow to lead and is so heavy that the whole thing has to be, things like that. We're not getting.
Oh,
that
he's got some
information.
answers. Yay.
Do I have to reintroduce myself? Jim
No.
Cox.
You're good.
So some of those stones they're no good. Some of them are starting to delaminate and fall apart, but some of them are good. And there is at least 4 or 5 tons of the same material on the property at 38. Just extra stuff that's been piled up around the edges of the parking lot. So 5 or 6 tons, you can get a lot of, I could get 15 face wall feet out of a ton. So,
Oh, nice.
and no one would be able to tell the difference whether it's the same stuff from the same quarry. Although that's weird. So I would be curious to know what we know about Mr. Ting, but I take it he's a stonemason, right? Can anyone attest to that? Anyway, that's my story.
Okay. Yep.
Well, good. The materials are there.
Yep. So from Marty, any other stuff? I mean, I think so. We need. Let me make sure I write a few. Well, number 3. Tell me the things so I can make sure I note down. So you said we want to make all the structural parts are to make sure they're good.
Yeah, that it can be reconstructed.
Yep.
Historically.
Yep.
What about number 4 with the use of historic?
Well, we're not there yet. Hold on.
3. So if you have any more information, if they came back with something, and is there some other?
You got the
information?
owners and
Yeah.
the.
When they come with when they come with the review, is there something else you need to know about the wall specifically?
No.
Yeah, is there something, is there anything that would prohibit working on a holistic solution?
Yes. For me, I just had a couple, because for me, I think now we're clear it's possible. And for me, the other one is it's structurally enough to hold the 40s cars. So for me, whatever's done, I want to
that's
make
really-
sure that we don't have an issue. And
Well, and to broaden that point out, anything that's modern that Mr. Wing didn't anticipate, the 40-ton truck or whatever it was, things that are going to come up in the next century, if we're talking about this lasting a century, that
Yeah, because the trash.
that a historically laid wall would have to contend with.
I don't think the dump truck's going to come back. But
No,
okay, yeah.
but how about on 40? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Of course, if all vehicles go electric, maybe things will be lighter, but
Dump truck will still probably be big. So, okay. I think on that one, clear enough.
I wanted to ask a question about 4. Would support the use of historic mortar? Did you mean non-historic mortar?
What's this?
In question number 4, if the board supports historic reconstruction, would the board support the use of historic mortar? But there was no mortar at the time.
There's,
Yeah, there was.
right, the thought there, and part of this was the discussion in the minor project request, is that maybe these stones should be mortared back in place. So whether it's historic or not, I think maybe we can set that aside, but the idea is, would the board support using any kind of mortar
That's what I wanted to
just
know.
to
Okay.
create an additional structural element, particularly if it could be done in a way that it's not visible
Okay.
on the face?
Right, okay,
Yes. Does that make sense?
yes.
All right.
And also, one of the proposals or one of the design solutions that I heard was that to allow for the drainage, there was perhaps be pebble behind it
Mhm.
rather than blocking it with mortar so that you have that impossible drainage part. So if it doesn't show, I think, and it makes it structurally sound, I don't think there'll be an objection.
Yeah, I agree if it's required. I mean, because we're talking in 2C that we would prefer historic materials and techniques, which would exclude the mortar. But if it were, again, going back to the use of historic mortar, but if taking that word out, so it's just mortar in general.
Yeah.
First of all, yeah, I would prefer it not be seen, but also if it were required, if we can't do it purely historically, then yes,
I think for me, if we're taking it down and putting it back up, I want to make sure it stays up. I
right.
think fundamentally, if we have to put some tabs that somehow make sure the thing stays, I would be open to
I'm
being.
pretty sure mortar was used in the 30s also, even if not used
Yep.
in that structure. So
Right.
So I'd be okay with some things if everybody comes back and says, yeah, if we do this, this is really going to stabilize it. I mean, I could be okay with that. Already in.
I don't think you don't want to see it.
Yeah,
Smack.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Have we
Okay.
talked it to death already? Number
Yeah,
5 is other.
I feel like, yep. So, okay. So for me, are there any public comments? Any comments anybody wants to make from the audience, or any public comments you've gotten by email? Sarah?
We haven't gotten any public comment.
No public comment? Okay.
The next door neighbors want to talk?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Bernie Coy, 900 Fox Creek Road, Sunbury, Ohio. Structural engineer. One thing to clarify on option 2C, structural reconstruction using only the historic materials and techniques. Does this mean we are not putting drainage behind the wall, that we are letting it be? Or are we able to use modern techniques to drain the wall properly so we are not in a situation further down the road?
Again, if it can't be seen, then, and it would be recommended, I wouldn't be against it. That was an awful lot of negatives in that sentence, but if you understood what I said, seeing it would be very important, or not seeing it. But also, yeah, stability of the wall and length of lasting. That didn't make sense, but.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, if you need to put pea gravel and put some tile back there and get it to a different place so it doesn't sit there and freeze over whatever would happen, I think from that standpoint, because I think we want to preserve it, but we don't want this to happen again in the next, well, okay, it's 100 years old, but on that side.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Thank you.
for me, Marty.
No, I think that clarification is.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so, I mean, I think I'll just maybe try to summarize what we talked, so make sure if I didn't get everything, so just kind of go, so for me, what we said, just for everybody out here to try to go forward since this is an informal review. So I think from our side, we're saying yes to a holistic approach. You know, I think and I think we acknowledge from our side, there's some challenges on that from both let's say, property owners. Certainly trying to understand, are there these grants that could maybe find it to be easier to do? Is there something city council can step in, and is there another way? And Sarah, I think you'll try to sort a bit through. I don't know how we push that down the path from here. I don't know if it's there, if it sits with legal, but.
Staff can certainly be a resource to help
Yeah.
bring people together
Yeah.
and to get folks to the right place to apply for those grants.
Okay.
We can certainly help answer questions.
All right.
Yes,
think it's
we
a-
will.
Yeah, okay. But it'll be incumbent on
best
the,
we can.
on the owner to come to you and try to find some solutions forward. But I think from the grants, and I think there may be some other ways that sit out there through the city. So I think
Right.
on that side, I think our approach is, if you can do it holistically, that's great. But certainly, I think there's some challenges that are going to come to that corner that I think probably we should sort out before we get to some point. But two, I think clearly for us, no action is not an option. I'll say as the three of us, we prefer C. And I think we've said there are some flexibility behind the wall, let's say, that if we had to do something more modern, pea gravel, drainage, some of these things, I think at least three of us, now mind you, there's two other board members who would be here potentially next time. I think we could be okay with that, but certainly using the historic materials and trying to construct it so it looks as it did in.
Yes, and to conceal any of the drainage. We talked about the surface water drainage pipes and the sewer line. I'm not sure what happens with that, but it has to be, to be ideal, not to have it be exposed.
Yes, yep, yes, exactly. So we're okay, did I get those? Yep, so good, I think on two. Three, so a couple of things. So I think from the board's perspective, we say we want to make sure it's structurally sound. Certainly whatever we do on 38, 39 holds whatever 40 is doing now on the site. So we have to make sure that you come back with a understanding of what that looks like, so we understand that it's safe and it will hold the load.
And we agree about mortar or other non-visible reinforcements behind.
I feel like I missed something on three. Did you have one more? I only wrote down one thing, and I thought there was more.
The ownership and cooperation of the owners.
Yeah, and then certainly when you're doing this, to make sure that there's some clarity when you're doing this, how you're going to do it between the two sites. So that was the other one. Four, I think we're okay if we can find ways to stabilize the wall that are not seen and still maintain, I think, the historic significance of that. I think from the three of us, we're okay. And I think we've considered all other things, so.
And we particularly like the use of the rock that's available on site that'll match.
So from staff or from legal, anything we need to just have anything on record on that side, and we're good?
I think that answers all of our questions.
Applicant, it'll be in the note, is that clarify enough so you can try to move forward with your project review? It's clear? Okay, good.
How about property at 40? Everybody feel good over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in a month or whatever the timeline is.
So now we have to adjourn?
I think we have, if there's communication, Sarah? I think must be this. Yeah.
No communications?
I should say, and yes, I know I need to do the DEI course before March 31st. I'm well aware that I'm delinquent.
Okay.
I know you did yours.
That was not going to be part of my communication. But
I will own up to it. I have to do it. By
Yeah,
March
I
31st,
did
it's in my head.
ethics, but now I got to do the newest thing.
Gentlemen,
I'm not avoiding it because of the subject matter. I want that to be clear as well.
gentlemen, folks, we're not done with our meeting yet. If you don't mind stepping outside.
Thanks.
But we appreciate that you're talking together.
All right. I have somehow managed to lose the piece of paper that had my notes for communications, but nevertheless, let's see. What I wanted to bring to your attention was we are kicking off Envision Dublin, which is the community plan update, and I put some flyers at your seats there. The first public kickoff is going to be on April the 18th. Everybody is going to be invited. It's going to be a very interactive evening, I am told. On the back of this flyer is a QR code for a survey, a community survey. So please tell everybody that you know, help spread the word that everybody should be taking that survey and participating. The second part of Envision Dublin is a workshop with Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council and yourselves that is planned for April 17th. And I will send out an invitation for that tomorrow. Hopefully everybody can come. I believe it's from 6 to 8 here at City Hall, but I will double check that.
But this says
That's the public one.
public, okay.
That's the public one. There's going to be a board and commission and council kind of a retreat and discussion just amongst those groups on the 17th. So I will send that out. And that looks like the sum total of what I had.
And I saw there was another, I accepted something on the 7th.
Yeah, that's
I
a
forget what it
swearing in
was.
and
Was a swearing in. Okay, yep,
recognition.
yep, okay.
That was something different
The
that I'm
10th.
not sure I sent out.
No, that wasn't you, no. Used on the thing.
on the 10th, I think, the week
Not the
before.
10th. Yeah, it's a week before, yep. Good.
All right.
So you're
I-
saying that the joint meeting is going to be 6 to 8 on the 17th?
I believe it's 6 to 8. I know it's on the 17th. I will send out those invites tomorrow and you'll be able to see the exact time.
Perfect. Anything else?
Nothing for me.
Good. All right, anybody else? In good order?
We're going to have an agenda next month,
It is going to be jam-packed. As of right now, we have 5 applications with more pounding on the door. So May is filling up.
Good.
and
Okay.
just for the
Yeah,
record.
no
it's
shortage of
April.
business.
April's next month.
April, yeah.
Sorry?
May is 2 months, so April
Yeah.
is the next hearing.
So you're saying May is the overflow from April, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Oh, I
May,
see.
Yes.
Gotcha.
it
And
took me a
that-
minute to understand that as well.
That is April the 26th.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Sounds right.
We should
My
have
calendar.
everybody here for that, is my understanding.
Yep. Good.
Okay.
Okay. Then I think we're adjourned.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job.
We.
Thank you all. Absolutely. Sure.